There are 10 dirt cheap used boats sitting on docks right now that almost nobody will buy, and every last one of them will outlast the shiny new boats they are tied up next to. A brand new trawler off the showroom floor at this year's boat show will cost you $895,000. A new passage maker built to cross an ocean runs north of $1.5 million. Nobody walking those docks with a checkbook is going to say this out loud, but that faded old boat tied up 2 slips down, the one with the gray teak that nobody looked at twice, will still be crossing open water long after the shiny new one is sitting in a yard with a sheared-off drive and a repair bill that reads $80,000. I have surveyed both kinds for 30 years, the $1 million badge and the forgotten workhorse, and I am here to tell you the truth the broker never will. The boats I am about to show you cost less than a used pickup truck. They were built by people who did not know how to cut a corner. And the one sitting at number 1, the boat I would put my own money on before anything else on this dock, has a pickup truck engine hiding in her belly. Hold on to that, because we are counting all the way down to her. Here is what you have been told for the last 30 years, whether anybody said it plainly or not. You have been told that new is safe and old is a gamble, that a boat with a warranty and a touchscreen and a joystick is somehow more boat than the plain old thing your granddad would have recognized. Let me be honest with you, because this is the one honest thing this whole list stands on. It is exactly backward. The old boats were built thick, by hand out of solid glass, by people who assumed you would want to fix the thing yourself someday. The new ones are built thin and sealed up tight because a thinner hull and an engine room you cannot get into move more boats off the showroom floor. That is not a conspiracy, friend. That is just money and how markets work. The new trawler is built to be financed. These were built to be owned. And that you did not know the difference is not on you. Nobody was ever going to tell you because there is no money in it. My name is Bubba, and for 30 years I made my living surveying boats, walking every hull and telling the buyer the honest truth. Is she worth the money, or is she going to sink you? I own nothing on this list, and I am selling you nothing, so you are getting it straight. Now, before we get into it, I have to be honest with you about one thing. Only a very small percentage of the people who watch this channel are actually subscribed. If you love finding out what a used boat is really worth before you hand over a dime, even half as much as I do, then do consider subscribing. It is completely free and you can always change your mind later. It genuinely helps an old surveyor keep making these. Right then, let us count them down, from 10 all the way to 1, starting with a boat most folks have never even heard of. Number 10, the CHB-34. CHB stands for Chunghua Boat, a Taiwan yard from the golden era of the 1970s and 80s, and it might be the most overlooked trawler on the water. You can find one for under $30,000. People see a brand name they do not recognize and they assume something must be wrong with it. Usually nothing is wrong except a nervous surveyor once scared a buyer off, so let me say what that survey report was too polite to say. These hulls were overbuilt to a standard no factory would pay for today. Solid glass, a long full keel, and a big slow-turning propeller tucked up inside an aperture where a floating log cannot take it off. You can run one aground on a sandbar, back her off, and keep going. Try that with a new boat riding on a pair of exposed pod drives and you are looking at a haul out and a repair bill north of $15,000 before you finish your coffee. Down in the engine room you will usually find a Ford Lehman or a Perkins, both of them famous for refusing to die. The teak decks are the weak point. After 40 years the bungs and the caulk let go, water finds the core, and that is precisely why the price is on the floor. But a competent owner pulls the teak, glasses the deck over, and ends up with a boat better than the day she left Taiwan. Your test before you buy one. Get up on that deck and press your thumb hard beside every deck fitting. If it gives, that is your bargaining chip, not your deal breaker. Number 9, the Mainship 34. Our first American-built boat for the fellow who wants a home yard close by. Mainship built these down in Florida, single diesel, simple as a claw hammer, and they built a lot of them, which means parts and know-how are everywhere you look. A clean classic Mainship 34 runs $30,000 to $40,000, and some of the older ones can be had for as little as $11,000. Now here is the part that ought to make you sit up. The newer version of this very same boat, the Mainship Pilot, same brand, same basic idea, sells used from $99,000 all the way up to $282,000, same name on the hull. The only real difference is that the Classic came along before the boat got complicated. That single engine scares some buyers who think they need two, but a single diesel means half the maintenance, half the fuel, and one less thing to break in the worst possible moment. The good ones came with a Perkins or a Cummins, no joystick, no pod drive, no touchscreen waiting to brick itself after a software update the dealer charges you to install. There is a wheel, a throttle, and a boat that does exactly what you tell it. A man can learn every system on this boat in a single weekend. Your test: ask the owner for the maintenance log. If he kept one, buy the boat. If he kept a good one, buy it today. Number 8, the Marine Trader 34, and you will trip over one of these at every marina in the country. Walk any dock from Florida to the Chesapeake and you will find one sitting there with an asking price around $40,000. The rough ones, the projects, go for 15. People stride right past them because of the teak. All that exterior wood means weekend after weekend of sanding and varnish, and folks take one look and assume the whole boat is rotten from the inside out. It is not. Underneath that gray wood is a hand-laid solid fiberglass hull, thick as a phone book, built in Taiwan when labor was cheap and nobody had figured out how to make a boat thin enough to cut costs. The bones are bulletproof. What scares buyers off is cosmetic. What should scare them is the price tag on the new boat across the marina. Most of these came with a single Ford Lehman 120, a marinized Ford diesel off the same basic block Ford put in tractors and work trucks for decades. Mechanics call it the small block Chevy of the diesel world. It turns slow, it sips fuel, and with nothing but regular oil changes it will run 12 to 15,000 hours before it ever needs a major overhaul. A buyer picks up a sound Marine Trader for $18,000, spends a few weekends on the teak, and he is cruising the Great Loop in a boat that owes him nothing. The other fellow, the one who financed $895,000 of new fiberglass, is still making payments on the depreciation. Your test: bring a moisture meter and run it across the deck core before you fall in love. Number 7, the Gulfstar 36 Trawler, built right here in Florida in the 1970s, and one of the roomiest boats for the dollar you will ever step aboard. A clean one changes hands around $35,000 to $45,000. Gulfstar laid up these hulls heavy, with a wide beam that gives you a real living room down below, the kind of space a couple can actually spend a winter in without wanting to throw each other overboard. They came with single or twin diesels, usually Perkins or Lehman, the same honest iron you are hearing me name again and again for a reason. The weak spots are the usual old trawler weak spots: teak decks, tired hoses, and thirsty old wiring. None of it is structural and all of it is fixable by a patient owner on a Saturday. Your test: open every locker and put your nose to work. A boat tells you the truth through your nose before it ever tells you through your eyes. Musty means water, and water means you keep looking. Number 6, the Californian 34 LRC, and those letters stand for Long Range Cruiser, which tells you exactly what she was built to do. A solid one runs $40,000 to $50,000. These were West Coast boats, built for the open Pacific, with a deep keel, big fuel tanks, and the range to run all day at 7 or 8 knots without ever watching the gauge. They ride heavy and they ride easy, and in a real sea they will shame a lighter production boat that pounds and rolls its passengers green. Twin diesels on most of them, which means if one quits in an inlet, you still have a way home. Whatever you do, do not walk past one of these because the flybridge canvas is faded and the cushions are shot. That is a few $100s of cosmetics sitting on top of a boat that would cost $500,000 to build new. Your test: get down in the bilge and look for oil and salt crust around the engine mounts and the shaft seals. Dry and clean tells you the last owner cared. If this is the kind of straight talk you are not getting anywhere else, do me a favor and tap that subscribe button, because the top 5 is where it gets serious, and number 1 is the boat I would buy tomorrow with my own money. Number 5, the Albin 36. Now we step up into a real liveaboard. The Albin 36 is a true double-cabin trawler, 2 staterooms, 2 heads, a real galley, the kind of layout where a couple can actually live aboard for months at a time. A clean one sells for around $45,000, and a project boat changes hands for under $30,000. What makes the Albin special is how it was put together. The hull and the deck were overlapped and through-bolted under a heavy teak cap rail, not just glued and stapled like a lot of modern production boats. There is teak everywhere, inside and out, the kind of hand joinery that would cost a fortune to reproduce today. A lot of them carry twin Ford Lemons, so if one quits in a tide inlet, you still have a way home. Lose half your power on a single screw boat in a running tide, and you will understand why the old-timers paid for 2 engines. The brochure boat at the show has a flat screen at the helm and a joystick for docking, and it photographs better in the magazine, but that joystick runs through a control module that costs thousands of dollars when it fails, and the boat sits at the dock until the part ships. The Albin has a wheel, a throttle, and 40 more years left in the hull. One of those boats is an appliance, the other is an heirloom. Your test: check the cap rail seams for black staining, which tells you where water has been working. Number 4, the Choi Lee Trawler. Another Taiwan and Hong Kong yard, and one of the finest builders of that whole golden era, though you would never know it from the prices. A good one runs $40,000 to $60,000, a fraction of what her build quality would cost today. Choi Lee built boats for people who meant to keep them, with heavy solid glass, real bronze hardware, and joinery below that will make you run your hand along it just to feel it. Some carried Ford Lemons, some Perkins, a few the bigger Caterpillars. These are boats that were babied by proud owners and then too often sat a few years when that owner got too old to run her, and that sitting is where the deals come from. Whatever you do, do not let a boat that has sat scare you off on its own. A boat that sat with clean oil and a dry bilge is a sleeping deal. A boat that sat wet is a money pit. Your job is to tell the difference, and a surveyor can. Your test: pull the engine dipstick and look for a milky brown color, which is water in the oil and a reason to walk. Number 3, the Willard 36, and from here on these are the boats that cross oceans. Here is a name the blue water crowd only whispers. Willard Marine has built more than 1,500 boats for the United States Navy, the Coast Guard, and the Marine Corps, and the company will tell you flat out that not one customer has ever reported a hull failure. Willard built the first production fiberglass trawler yacht in this country, before Grand Banks, before any of the names everybody chases today. These are full displacement boats, double-ended on some models, with a hull so heavily laid up that a surveyor runs out of bad things to say about it. A Willard will sit at anchor in a 30-knot blow-rock steady while the lighter production boats around it pitch and roll like carnival rides. You can buy a Willard 36 for somewhere between $36,000 and $45,000. The owners tend to keep them for life, so they do not come up for sale often, and when one does, the people who know move fast. Down below you will usually find a single Perkins turning slow, burning under 1.5 gallons an hour. Nobody buys these in big numbers because they are slow and they are plain, but slow and plain is exactly what crosses an ocean and carries you home. Your test: if you find one for sale, do not haggle the seller to death, get a survey, and if she is sound, buy her before the fellow behind you does. Number 2, the DeFever 40. Art DeFever was a California naval architect who spent his career designing commercial tuna boats 80 to 180 feet long, the kind that ran all the way down to the Galapagos and stayed at sea for weeks. He said he drew more than 3,800 boats in his life. When he designed a trawler for regular people, he gave it that same commercial fishing backbone: heavy displacement, a deep full keel, a wide beam, and fuel tanks big enough to cross open water without ever watching the gauge. This is the boat the folks who actually cross oceans go looking for. A solid DeFever 40 trades hands somewhere around $80,000 to $130,000. That sounds like real money until you remember that a brand new passage maker with this kind of ocean ability starts at $699,000 before you even add tax and delivery. Most DeFevers run a big slow-turning diesel, or a pair of them, sipping around 1.5 gallons of fuel an hour at 7 knots. Set that against a new express cruiser burning 15 to 20 gallons an hour to make the very same trip in a hurry it does not need to be in. The DeFever owner motors past at 1.5 gallons, and the systems down below are simple enough that he becomes his own mechanic. You do not wait 3 weeks for a dealer, you pull the valve cover yourself on a Saturday. Your test: measure the fuel capacity and do the math on her range. That number is the whole point of the boat. Which brings us to the top of the list, the one I would put my own money on before any other boat on this dock. Number 1, the Monk 36. She was drawn by Ed Monk Jr., from one of the great American families of boat designers, and the people who really know trawlers hunt for these without ever making a sound about it. A clean one runs around $75,000, and a solid older example can still be found down in the 40s. Compare that to a new passage maker at over $1.5 million, and tell me who got the better boat. But here is the part I promised you at the very start, the part that ought to make every truckman watching sit straight up in his chair. A lot of Monk 36s were powered by the Cummins 6BT, the 5.9-liter diesel. That is the exact same iron block engine family Cummins dropped into the Dodge Ram pickup from 1989 to 1998, the legendary first-generation Dodge Cummins. Cast iron block, cast iron head, mechanical injection, no computer to throw a fit, and around 40% fewer parts than the gas engines it buried. It is the truck motor that refuses to die, and somebody marinized it and bolted it into a trawler. So while the man with the new boat is waiting 3 weeks for a factory technician with a special laptop just to read his fault codes, the Monk owner is out in the slip changing his own oil on a Saturday, using the very same knowledge he already trusts under the hood of his pickup. Slow turning, simple, and built to run for decades. That is why she sits at number 1. She is the back row of the lot. She is dusty, she is overlooked, and she is the single smartest dollar on the entire dock. Buy her once, learn her yourself, and never make a boat payment again. And that is the thread running through every one of these boats. Everybody fights over a brand new badge and pays $1 million for it, when these older boats were built just as tough by people who assumed you would want to fix them yourself someday. They came along before the industry figured out that a thinner hull and a sealed-up engine room move more boats off the floor. You were sold newness as safety, and it was never true. What is actually safe is a hull you can understand, an engine you can fix, and a boat that owes you nothing. That is not just a cheaper way to get on the water, that is a kind of independence almost nobody has anymore. The kind where the trucks can stop and the software can fail and you and your family still cross the water under your own power, on a boat you know down to the last bolt. So do me a favor, drop a comment below and tell me just 2 things, which of these 10 boats you would put your own money on and what is stopping you from buying a boat like this right now. I read as many as I possibly can and the patterns never cease to amaze me. Thank you for spending this time with me. Look after yourselves, and before you sign a thing, let old Bubba have a look first. And do subscribe, because next time I am pulling apart 9 used boats you should never buy no matter how good the deal looks, and the number 1 boat on that list is the exact one half the people watching are about to go out and buy this weekend.